There is a plant growing in abandoned lots, along roadsides, and in untended fields across North America right now that fixes nitrogen from thin air, feeding the soil beneath it without a single dollar spent on fertilizer. Not a little nitrogen. Up to 300 pounds per acre per year. The same amount a conventional corn farmer buys in bags and sprays from a tractor, paying $600 to $900 per acre to do what this plant does for free. The nitrogen fertilizer industry generates over $200 billion annually, and one of their most effective strategies has been convincing farmers that the plants already growing in their fields are enemies. This is the story of vetch, Vicia villosa, the hairy vetch, and what was done to erase it from the American agricultural mind. In 1847, a potato famine is consuming Ireland. Over 1 million people are dead. Another million are fleeing. The island's agricultural monoculture, keep a single variety of a single crop grown in depleted soil, has catastrophically failed. Across the Atlantic and the mid-Atlantic states of a young America, farmers of German and Dutch descent are doing something different. They are planting their fields with a tangle of purple-flowered climbing vines each autumn. The following spring, before the corn goes in, they turn those vines into the soil. Their yields stay stable. Their land stays alive. Their families stay fed. They have been doing this since before there was a word for nitrogen. The plant they are using has been doing this work for thousands of years. Roman agriculturalists documented hairy vetch as a soil restorer as early as 200 BC. Columella, writing in 60 AD, named it among the most valuable crops a farmer could plant, not for what it produced above ground, but for what it gave back underground. In ancient Mesopotamia, leguminous cover crops were rotated with grain crops for millennia before a single scientist had the framework to explain why it worked. The knowledge was empirical, precise, and passed down across generations without a laboratory. Then came the 20th century. Then came synthetic nitrogen. In 1909, Fritz Haber cracked the chemistry of atmospheric nitrogen fixation. By 1913, the Haber-Bosch process was industrial. By mid-century, synthetic nitrogen fertilizer had swept across American agriculture with the force of a religion. It was a revolution with a hidden cost. It worked fast, it worked visibly, and it required nothing from the farmer except a purchase order. Here is where the story fractures. When synthetic nitrogen became widely available, the structural incentive to plant cover crops collapsed. Extension agents, publicly funded advisors who had once promoted legume rotations, began recommending fertilizer applications instead. Agricultural universities, many of them quietly funded by chemical companies, restructured their curricula. The USDA, under pressure to modernize American farming, shifted its resources toward yield-maximizing monoculture systems. Cover cropping was not banned. It was not criminalized. It was simply defunded, de-emphasized, and quietly forgotten in the span of 2 generations. By 1970, most American farmers had never heard their grandparents talk about planting vetch. What the system buried was not just a plant. What the system buried was the memory of how to farm without dependency. The biology is not complicated. Hairy vetch is a legume. Like all legumes, it forms a symbiotic relationship with rhizobium bacteria in the soil. The bacteria colonize the plant's roots and form small nodules, visible to the naked eye as tiny white pearls along the roots. Inside those nodules, atmospheric nitrogen gas, which makes up 78% of the air but is chemically unavailable to most plants, is converted into ammonia. Ammonium, a form plants can absorb. When the vetch dies or is incorporated into the soil, that fixed nitrogen releases slowly, feeding the subsequent crop for the entire growing season. The process is called biological nitrogen fixation, and it is among the most elegant chemical relationships in all of agriculture. Hairy vetch can fix between 100 and 300 pounds of nitrogen per acre in a single season. University of Maryland research from 2003 confirmed that a killed vetch cover crop could supply 100% of the nitrogen needs of a subsequent corn crop, with no additional fertilizer inputs, while maintaining comparable yields to fully fertilized plots. Not reduced yields, comparable yields. At current urea prices of $450 to $650 per ton, that represents $135 to $195 in fertilizer cost eliminated per acre. On a 500-acre farm, the math is $67,500 to $97,500 per year. Every year. From a plant that costs $15 to $25 per acre to seed. Then somebody asked what else it was doing. In 2001, a Rodale Institute long-term trial, 23 years of data, compared organic systems using legume cover crops against conventional systems using synthetic nitrogen. The organic systems matched conventional yields for corn and soybeans. They used 30% less energy. Their soil organic matter was 25% higher. And during drought years, the organic plots outperformed conventional by 30 to 50%. Not in one year, consistently, because the cover-cropped soil held water, because the organic matter buffered temperature, because the system had depth that a bag of fertilizer never creates. A 2019 meta-analysis published in Nature Plants examined 5,463 paired comparisons of cover-cropped versus non-cover-cropped fields across 22 countries. Cover crops increased subsequent crop yields by an average of 4.6%. They reduced nitrogen leaching by 70%. They cut herbicide usage by an average of 59% by suppressing weeds through physical biomass. And they increased earthworm populations, a proxy for soil health, by 89%. Earthworm populations increased by 89%. In a system the fertilizer industry told us was unnecessary. The suppression of this knowledge was not orchestrated in a single boardroom. It was structural. It operated through incentive, not conspiracy. Fertilizer companies fund agricultural research. Agricultural research shapes extension service recommendations. Extension service recommendations shape what farmers plant. And farmers who have been buying nitrogen for 50 years are not going to be told by a state extension agent that they have been spending money they did not need to spend. The system protects itself because every player in it has a reason to protect it. The pattern repeats. Amaranth was suppressed because it produced food without requiring purchased inputs. Mesquite was eradicated because cattle operations needed bare pasture. Fava beans were replaced by pharmaceutical interventions that charged $500 per month for what grew free. The plants that enable independence are systematically removed, not because they fail and because they succeed without a purchase order attached. Right now, hairy vetch is growing across the eastern United States. Twisting, climbing stems covered in fine silver hairs. Leaves composed of 8 to 10 pairs of leaflets, soft to the touch. Purple to violet flowers in late spring that smell faintly of honey and attract native pollinators at a rate that monocrop fields cannot replicate. It overwinters in USDA hardiness zones 4 through 9. It tolerates drought. It tolerates poor soil. It thrives in the very conditions where industrial agriculture struggles. Germany uses cover crop rotations on over 40% of its agricultural land. Austria subsidizes legume cover cropping under its National Agri-Environment Program. France has mandated cover cropping on vulnerable soils since 2010 to reduce nitrogen runoff into waterways. In America, only 5.5% of cropland was planted with cover crops as of the 2017 USDA Census of Agriculture. The gap is not scientific. The gap is economic. The gap is a $200 billion fertilizer industry and the infrastructure that protects it. Abundance does not require control. That is the line the system cannot allow farmers to believe. Hairy vetch does not need a factory. It does not need a patent. It does not need a quarterly earnings call. It needs a field, a fall frost, and enough time to do what it has been doing since before Rome called it useful. The knowledge was not lost. It was set aside, and everything set aside can be picked back up. If this vault opened something for you, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell. Every like and every share preserves what they tried to erase. The next vault opens soon.